Abushani como our channel so hasi age politics avenue. Podcast or set trending because make headlines na jemre na idibi exomo ni dim nya hobraxia mu mesra say yanko political highways nim ejedam a enye asem koto akra na eye National Youth Organizer NPP Americo no Salam Mustafa ni sema okaye se omu ebetimi awo organize eye omu party supporters say in case say NDC Americo no chia omu echichi womu no say omu enjaya obewe organize eye omu party supporters no Attorney General eye aban lawyer pen atintabskoko de gusa asemosi so a onua ono so akire se ono so ebe treaty asem no with content it deserves contempt, I beg your pardon, with contempt it deserves onua asem no ano ayehye pa na Mr. Say monra eye nsimnim na yenhwe ne yekọ ene de eba aha age politics avenue.
Thank you very much. Let's bring you more stories this afternoon because the Attorney General, Dominic Ayini, has condemned threats by the NPP to make Ghana ungovernable. The NPP National Youth Organizer Mustafa Salam warned on Tuesday that the party could take actions that would make the country, quote, extremely ungovernable if what it describes as harassment and intimidation of its members continue. Speaking to journalists at the Public Accounts Committee, Dr. Ayini rejected claims that free speech is under attack and said the NPP's threats must be treated with the contempt they deserve.
The Attorney General, in responding to the number of issues raised by the NPP in recent time with regards to the arrest and detention of party faithfuls, first took on the assertion that freedom of speech is under attack under the John Mahama government. He insists that although he cherishes or appreciates the relevance of free speech in our democracy, he will be the last person to allow people to take the law into their own hands in the name of free speech.
We do not expect that the minority will say that we should sit down idle as a government and allow that person to go on, because those are some of the things that led to wars in countries such as Rwanda. We have not gotten there, okay? But it was the use of the radio, okay, the use of the media, that incited the genocide that eventually took place in Rwanda. So there are limits to free speech, and I will say that the President of the Republic, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, is one of the staunchest supporters of free speech, because he himself, is a communicator he's a communication specialist. I don't want to say he was a journalist, all right, but he was into communication, and so he understands the importance of free speech in a democratic society.
Responding directly to the threats by the youth organizer of the party, Mustafa Salam, who threatened that they will make the country extremely ungovernable if these activities do not stop, he said that threat must be treated with the contempt that it deserves.
As Attorney General, I do understand the importance of free speech in a democratic society, and I would be the last person, okay, to want to end run the rights of our citizens to freely express themselves. But I should also not be the person who will sit idle when matters are being taken into citizens are taking matters into their hands when it comes to free expression. Well, as for the threat of arming themselves and making the country ungovernable, I think I will treat it with the contempt it deserves, okay? But as far as this government is concerned, I want to reiterate that we will respect the rights and freedoms of every Ghanaian. It's very interesting when, statements like that are being made, that we are doing this because oral is failing. Oral is not failing, all right? Go back and check the records. I am the first Attorney General in the history of the Fourth Republic to have brought 5 corruption cases in 1 year. Go back and check the records. And what is happening in court now is rather putting pressure on them because they know that I have been so diligent in my investigations, I have been so diligent in the prosecutions that they are afraid that their people will go to jail for the acts of corruption that they engage in. And so the accusation that we are shifting focus away from oral is not something that I will pay heed to, because oral is on track and oral is going to succeed.
Now back to the reason he had to appear before the Public Accounts Committee. The 68.7 billion special audit report indicated that the AG's department raised a claim of some 33 million Ghana cedis, out of which the Finance Ministry approved some 25 million Ghana cedis. The rest, over 7 million cedis, was rejected. Now, part of that 7 million was a bank transaction advisory of some 780,000 Ghana cedis. The AG himself, Dr. Dominic Ayini, then took on the auditors, indicating that they had met them on meetings and indicated their position on the matter. And so he finds it quite ridiculous that they will go ahead to still indicate in this report when the matter, according to him, has been settled with the auditors and the Finance Ministry.
I think part of the problem, and I'm putting this on record, because we've had to deal with issues of enforcement of surcharges and disallowances. And we are running into problems because most of the time the auditors do not consult MDAs before they put out figures. In this particular instance, we met with them at the Ministry of Finance. I led the team. We gave all the explanations necessary. So for them to now put it in the public accounts, in the audited accounts, or the report of the Auditor General, and for me to leave my ministry and the heavy load of work that I have to do to come here and appear before this committee, I think is grossly unacceptable. It's grossly unacceptable because we are having issues, the similar issues with other MDAs that I'm currently stuck with disallowances and surcharges that I can't enforce. So I think it is important that at least they should consult with the MDAs before they put out matters in the public accounts, the report of the Auditor General. We appeared before the Minister of Finance, and your good selves were represented. And we gave an explanation and gave you the supporting documentation. So if you escalate it to the level of putting it in your report as if some wrongdoing has occurred, that is where I have a problem. And the Public Accounts Committee is supposed to, make public entities accountable. And you don't hold anyone accountable when they have done the right thing, or an explanation has been given that is acceptable either in law or in accordance with accountancy practices. That is where I have the problem.
The day proceeded with meetings with the senior high schools who had some infractions. The headmistress of Suhum Girls SHS explained how she had to resort to threats and even involve the police to redeem some over 30,000 Ghana cedis paid to two separate employees of the school who earned these salaries unduly.
Eric Nyakon resigned. He was a kitchen staff. And then when he resigned, that very month, I didn't validate. I also wrote to the bank to embargo his salary. But unfortunately, the bank didn't take action, so the money went into it. And immediately, I called him on phone and he came. And he gave me a very flimsy excuse, so I quickly called the police commander to come and pick him up. He said he wasn't going to pay. And I asked him why. He said when he came, he served the government for over 5 years. He never received salary. That is why when the money came, he took it. So until government pays him that 5 years he owed before he received the letter, he wasn't going to pass. Okay. So you should have gone through a process to alert the government that he owed you when you were here as a worker. You can't leave before you ask government to pay you what he owed you over 10 years. So I asked the police commander to pick him up, and he sold his cow and paid.
He sold his cow?
Cow, yeah, he had a cow, so he sold it. I told them not to release him until he paid. He actually paid. And then as for Emmanuel Aubry, he has to pay. Then as for Emmanuel Aubry, he was a teacher. We vacated on August 24th that year. And he had marked his scripts and brought. In September, he came to fail all the reports. So it assumed that he was around, and I validated him for August, and then also in September. But then when we reopened in October, he didn't come. Then when we followed, we realized that he had not been around before we resumed. So it means he didn't deserve to take September. But for August, I can't say no. I think the auditors know up to 24th he's entitled to it. So I made my accountant to look for him, and we're told he had traveled. So I traced, and I was directed to his father-in-law. So I went and told the father-in-law that I needed to get in touch with him. So he was, Madam Obachemi, sister or so your wife would have benefited from the money. And so the man quickly now called him, and we took the contacts. And I told him to pay. So he told me the money was in his account. He was in US. I said, find a way to pay. He said he couldn't get access to it. And then I used my own ways and took it. So he's paid all.
Mr. Chair, this is the woman king. I mean, woman power.
That's when
women are. That's your name, right?
That's how the students call me.
Yes,
woman king.
Women are given the chance to be in authority, things run well.
Yes.
Auditors, kindly confirm what she just said.
Doc, what's your own viewpoint of this whole issue of the MPP petitioning the diplomatic corps because they feel that the government is using state agencies to intimidate them and preventing them from, giving out their divergent views on issues?
Thank you. And before I answer that, let me also do a few things, and then I'll get to that conclusion.
Okay.
All that is going on as a political scientist watching the political space, all that I see is that all effort is to strengthen the frontiers of our democracy, and I'm in love with that. But the approach is what has always created problem for us. Let us look at democracy. Democracy hinges on rule of law. Without law, democracy cannot survive anywhere. It doesn't matter how good your intentions are. If you are not operating democracy using rule of law, forget it. It's a sorry story. One aspect of also democratic life is language, where we use language to communicate ideas, opinions, and what have you. Democracy, these are some of the tools that allow democracy to work. But because language or free speech is not absolute, language is always guided by law. There is a limit. Because if you go to the Latin word of freedom, liber is what? That is freedom, but freedom is always not absolute because it endangers the life of that individual who want to exercise what? Absolute freedom. So there is always what? A limitation. And law, I'm not a lawyer, but the lawyers will bear me out. And the essence of every law is to regulate the conduct of the people, right? So whenever there is a behavior, then a law comes in to what? Define the contours of that behavior. Because we know that as individuals, we have the tendency to come up with certain behavior that will be at variance with what? Our social norms, practices, and all that. So we bring a law to regulate people's conduct, all right? If you look at it from that perspective, you realize that all this conversation is about the law, Act 775, and how it is being used. That law, I'm not sure is a bad law that was developed. It was developed to regulate a certain conduct within the political space so that we can ensure stability, we can ensure what? Protection of our constitution and all that. But if you listen to the political actors and you listen to the happenings, the goings on from all that we have had in the Fourth Republic, it's fair to say that then we have to take a second look of the law because the law, maybe there is an avenue that people can exploit, and then it will undermine the fundamental freedoms of people. And if you look at all the conversation from different political actors, you realize that there is a certain level of concern people have expressed about the way the laws are being implemented. That said, then for me as a student of politics, then the state has a responsibility. Our responsibility is that let us amend the law. If we think that the law can be abused, the law can be used without a just cause, let us amend. Because we make them to regulate the conduct of people. But if the law can be abused, then why not? We need to look at that and look at that carefully. If you look at I have always said, that yes, criticisms are the oil that grease the wheels of governance. Without it, every governance will grind to a halt. But the criticisms must be situated in the law, all right? Otherwise, it becomes far away from any democratic enterprise. And so if you criticize, if you make statement, we are doing that in mind that there is a law that regulates our speech, that regulates our conduct and all that. The lawyers will tell you that if you are even criticizing, your language must be measured and tempered and all that. They are pointing you to the frontiers of the law. So that is what I have observed. And then one thing I've observed is that, look, if you see insult, attacks within the political space, my understanding is that then there's a lack of arguments. Because if you have arguments, there's no point of insult. If you have argument, there's no point of attack. Bring your argument. Look at today, on the table in the studio and here. Yeah. You see lovely argument without insulting that attack. Yeah. For me, that is what it ought to be. And then coming back to your last point, that is it right that the NPP will petition the U.S. Embassy and all that? You see, the exercise that they took yesterday was firmly rooted in politics and in law. They have a right to petition any political actor, whether within or outside, provided it will serve their cause, all right? There's nothing wrong. Okay. It falls under public opinion that one of the means by which you can express public opinion is through protest, demonstration, and all that. But remember, all these things are guided by law. Okay. So once they protest, they send message there and all that, there's nothing wrong. They have not breached anything for me. That is my understanding. All right. But you always want to find out whether that will serve your interests. And for me, remember that they are dealing with lawyers, they know what they are doing. While they are pursuing the legal interest, at the same time, they are looking at the politics of it. Remember, these institutions are also here, the embassies and watching the goings on within the political space. And some of these things find expression in our human rights report and all that. So they know what they are doing. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But as to whether it will serve their interest, it's just a matter of time. But my emphasis is that if the law is problematic, we should get the courage to amend or repeal. And that will sanitize the system. Because human beings, we are not perfect. We will come out and breach the law. We will abuse. But if we think that there is a temptation, there's the tendency and all that, then the law must be looked at again. For me, that's my submission.
Thank you very much. I'm grateful to you. We've had a beautiful discussion on this. I really wanted us to deal with the rent control.
Just 2 minutes.
We have just 5 minutes.
Just 2 minutes. I'll be happy.
That means we can't touch on the rent control. Yes, I'm also interested in the rent control.
But just 2 minutes. Just 2 minutes.
No,
so
I can give you 2.
Okay, just a minute. Just a minute. Abronye is not a flight risk. Abronye walked to the court, and Abronye does not have any history of jumping bail. He even was sick some time ago, like 2 weeks ago. He had to go outside the country and come back because of the court cases. So he had never jumped bail. Again, the judge waited after 6 days before the ruling came out. Even the animal farm judge, the ruling came that day. That is why even yesterday, the majority leader said that, why is he keeping the ruling? Is he amending it to suit the discourse and so on? And that is what he did. That's what we believe he did. Because you see, in the course, he said that even in the ruling, when you check the ruling, he's saying that he denied him bail just because he feels that he will come and commit another offense again. What shows that after 14th too, he will not keep him there again. After the 14 days, he will still keep him there because it's in tandem with what Afenyo Martin said, that the judge is saying that he's denying him bail. It's even in the ruling because if he is to come out, he will still commit further offenses. It means he's keeping him there until the duration of the entire case. And that is dangerous and problematic because of free speech. Again, when he mentioned Delta Force, they went through court, the Attorney General prosecuted them and they were convicted, 13 of them. So there's nothing wrong with that. Again, we are going to court today, a higher court, to really set aside that ruling. Today, this morning, the lawyers are preparing to go to the High Court so that they set aside that ruling so that Ǎnĝriļy can come and have his freedom. All that we're saying is that this government in the last 1 year, 6 months, has been using...
We ain't sema hodua, unya yeribi exumo, that's any ebesan Asia.